It's amazing how quickly these have happened. They did go for a third vote today. Jim Jordan failed by the widest margin yet, and apparently that was too much for anyone to stomach.
Yeah, 3 additional Republican members decided they did not want to vote for Jim Jordan today, so 25 were against him. They decided to go back into conference, and in that conference meeting, the Republicans essentially voted him out as nominee. Now it's going to be a question of what happens going forward. And there is just a growing list of names here, some more familiar perhaps than others. But there could be a lot of hats tossed into the ring by the time lawmakers come back to town on Monday evening.
So, Annmarie, we have another candidates forum set for Monday, and then we go back with voting. We said back to square one. We meant it.
Yeah, and I still think the question remains, who can get to 217?
Absolutely.
Megan, anyone on that list we just saw, that list that's growing?
It's growing.
I know former Speaker McCarthy's coming out and backing Congressman Emmer. Byron Donalds throwing his hat in the mix. I mean, at this point, if you have any aspiration to maybe be Speaker, now would be the moment to potentially say and raise your hand and say, maybe I can get to 217. But look at this.
Yeah,
9 people now.
I think that McCarthy's backing gets Emmer, sort of a perhaps to a majority during this candidate forum and the ensuing vote. I'm not sure it gets him to 217. Remember, he actually voted on January 7th, 2021, to approve the election results. So he is not liked by the Trump wing of the party.
So within 24 hours, Joe, we've literally gone from someone who's a Trump loyalist to someone who certified the election results.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the Republican
Trump
Party.
loyalist who
They're
helped to
completely
try to overturn
divided.
the results in Jim Jordan, something that we talked about a lot. I'll tell you, we heard from Hakeem Jeffries today as well. A lot of folks are pointing to the Democratic leader for maybe some help on the way forward here, and he keeps pointing back to the Republican conference. Listen.
House Democrats have repeatedly made clear we want to find a bipartisan path forward.
Leader Jeffries.
At every step of the way, Republicans have rejected bipartisanship and embraced extremism. Jim Jordan is a clear and present danger to our democracy.
Which reminds us of a whole other idea. Around this time yesterday, we were talking about Patrick McHenry being empowered as a temporary speaker, and that got blown out of the water as well. So, Kailey, I don't know where we are.
Yeah, I guess it's still not out of the question that those kind of resolutions that would give McHenry more power, Speaker Pro Tem, get revived if we find ourselves in the same position, say, next Friday. But a number of members who were speaking to reporters at the Hill earlier today suggested that if McHenry wants more power, he should just run for Speaker, because they don't think necessarily it is constitutionally sound to be giving the Speaker Pro Tem that kind of ability to conduct legislative business. And I would note Patrick McHenry is decidedly not one of the individuals who have formally tossed their hat into the ring at this point.
Right, but Terry Haynes actually said to all three of us yesterday that Patrick McHenry does have those powers right now. But obviously this is becoming very political. Kailey mentioned talking to all these congressmen and women up on the Hill. She spoke to Matt Gaetz. He talked to reporters about Jim Jordan on his way out of the meeting with fellow Republicans after we learned that Jim Jordan no longer has a chance.
The most popular Republican in the United States Congress was just knifed by a secret ballot in a private meeting in the basement of the Capitol. It's as swampy as swamp gets, and Jim Jordan deserved better than that.
All right, so he was one of the many individuals you spoke coming out of that conference meeting. But aren't they all blaming Matt Gaetz for really being the ringleader that put them in this exact position?
They are. And what's interesting is after that third vote failed, Matt Gaetz came out along with Bob Good, Tim Burchett, some of these other members of the 8, if you will, who decided they wanted to oust Speaker McCarthy. And they came out and said, hey, look, censure us, sanction us, kick us out of the Republican conference. If that's what it takes to get Jim Jordan elected Speaker, if you want a chunk of our flesh, go ahead and do that. They actually penned a letter to their colleagues that essentially said that. Nancy Mace was in the mix there as well. And yet Jim Jordan is very much not going to be Speaker of the House at this point. So I'm not really sure how far that effort went.
Well, so Megan, I don't know. Help us out here. It's pretty difficult to understand where we're going. The government's supposed to shut down, set to shut down in less than a month. If we start going through the motions here, nobody on that wall who we're showing can get to 217. Does the shutdown motivate some kind of a deal once we start moving into next week?
Well, 17 days ago, when this all kicked off, we thought that the shutdown and then ultimately Hamas-Israel war would certainly motivate members. This desire to get Israel aid money, which is widely widely liked on both sides of the aisle, that has not ended up being the case. So what we're seeing now is, once again, going through each of these candidates. They're probably going to have multiple rounds on Monday night because, we're now up to 9. So, and who knows who else might file between and the Sunday deadline. It certainly could.
It's grown since we had a chance to make this for TV.
It's grown since we've even been able to make our graphics. We'll have to add to that. We'll tell the producers. But, Joe, to your point, it's kind of counterintuitive. You would think that we were definitely headed for a shutdown given the impasse we have in Congress. Right. But Terry Haynes of Pangea Policy said to us yesterday the chaos in the House could actually help avoid a shutdown. Take a listen.
Right now, we've got an 80% likelihood of a shutdown. The scenario where that shutdown percentage goes down is one in which, paradoxically, this no speaker situation goes on for a while. And what Republicans realize is, we absolutely have to extend existing funding for a period, a months long period of time.
So if it comes November 17th and we're headed towards a government shutdown, does Patrick McHenry, if we do not have a speaker, put a stopgap measure on? And then he appeals to his party saying, well, we need to keep the government open so we can actually find a Speaker of the House?
Patrick McHenry has been among the most firm Republicans, saying he does not have any powers aside from the powers to run the Speaker election. And he does not want to set a precedent that gives him these, the powers to pass legislation or do anything else, really, except for elect a speaker. So I don't see that as a possibility. The card that everyone's keeping in their back pocket is this electing McHenry for a short period of time, time limited, get us past the shutdown, get aid to Israel, get aid to Ukraine, depends on who you ask in the Republican Party about that. But, and I think that's in everyone's back pocket. But we saw that quickly, rise and then crash yesterday when Jordan floated it. So it's really impossible to see how this all plays out.